well, who I think is uniquely suited to know, which museums, which kinds of arts and culture are best for local residents. But we both don't have the revenue to do that, and are being explicitly restricted from spending those dollars on arts and culture by the prevailing party at the state. So no specific insight other than to say that there should be more. This is why it can't happen. And I wish that it wasn't partisan, because Republicans and Democrats both participate in the arts and culture. I think only one side understands that you need to fund those things to keep them happening.
I think the other issue, if I may, around funding for arts and culture is, and something that we really need to do a better job pushing is, that's also, I mean, that brings in tourism dollars from around the country. People come to Milwaukee for some of our world-class museums and cultural exhibits. And our tourism budget, we get back, I believe it's like $8 for every dollar spent on tourism. And by basically defunding these programs, it cuts down on our tourism funds coming in.
Very good. Representative Sinicki, you marked, there's a first question, SB 573.
Oh,
live. Did you know that?
It's not part of the budget, but I just, Eric, I think it was Eric has a lot of questions.
Joe, it's Joe. Joe.
Oh, is it Joe? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on that, because as the ranking member on state affairs, this session and last session, we've had several bills come through that basically protect oil and gas. And so even if that bill is reintroduced by Senator Halls, it would never make it through the assembly the way the assembly is right now. There's a very, very strong distaste for anything green.
Yeah, I do believe that the governor did submit, as well as every other state, a plan for EV charging stations that came through in the infrastructure bill that was passed on a bipartisan basis last congressional session. And so those are funds that are coming in through the state, and I don't believe require any state fund or state oversight. I think they can just happen. So, which is,
I hope you're right, but I'm not sure if you're right on that or not.
all
But I
right.
hope you're right.
Okay.
I'll check into it.
All right, we'll check. We'll check and get a firm answer maybe in the next 20 minutes. Fingers crossed. But I believe the President Biden has a lot of the initiatives that they put forward. They recognize the mistakes of I wouldn't say mistakes, but they learned from what happened in the past, right? With where Badger Care was not expanded, Medicaid was not allowed to expand just because of partisan blockade, right? And just being able to allow for those things to move forward makes a lot of sense. So we will get a firmer answer to see what's going on, because I know that there's a lot of recharging anxiety out there for people who are thinking about or already have electric vehicles that is not just here, but is nationwide, that they're looking to try and address. So.
And Wisconsin is particularly bad for charging infrastructure. I have an electric vehicle that I drive to and from Madison here all the time. And it's fine for between bigger cities like that. But if you take an electric vehicle up into the northern part of the state, there is very little, you can bring it up there, you might just, not be able to bring it back. So like we have a lot of work to do. Other states are doing far better, and it would make sense to invest in that sort of infrastructure. So
yeah.
Thomas,
sorry, just before you go,
yeah,
were you going to talk about the fee that was added?
Oh no, you can do that.
Okay. I'm here. More bad news. Let's pile right on. There is a motion in this. One of the things that they did that didn't get a lot of attention, because there's, to be fair, a lot of things that need a lot of attention. They would raise registration fees from up another $75 for electric and hybrids in the state. So there's already there's already a fee out there. I believe it's already 100, so this would go up to
100 already, on top of what you'd normally pay to register a vehicle.
Yeah, so it would go up to 175 from the state. So again, unfortunately, not incentivizing the use of whereas other states are moving to incentivize the purchase of electric and hybrids. Wisconsin is trudging backward in the opposite direction and de-incentivizing those things. So luckily, there is the subsidy that came through the Inflation Reduction Act at the federal level, that those will be kicking in for not just new, but also used electric vehicles, to be able to reduce the overall cost of those, which helps offset some of that. So not just, there's some good news on top of the bad news Sunday.
Yeah, right. The federal level, we're trying to offset some of the terrible things we're doing here in Wisconsin. So
There you go. There you go. More important, I don't know if you saw the news alert, but it just said Brookfield had the worst air quality in the entire country as of an hour ago. So
we're number one.
And the sooner we can do something about that, about climate change, the better.
So Thomas Hickey asks, will Milwaukee County have to pay for stadium updates? I want to get a really clear answer here and say no. The Milwaukee County Board, it's very rare to get us to do anything unanimously, but the county board, all 18 folks on it, voted against spending Milwaukee County dollars to pay for stadium updates. The last version of the Republicans' plan was to have Milwaukee County pay $4 million annually, and for the city to pay $1 million. This is going towards basically a handout to the billionaire owners of the Brewers. So right now we're locked into a contract where Milwaukee County, or not Milwaukee County Stadium, it hasn't been that for a long time, where AmFam, the AmFam plan has to be in the top 20% of stadiums nationwide. And basically what that means is that every time the Ender Stadium gets a significant upgrade, we have to do something similar or better. And when I asked the folks who were at the table most recently, like, surely not everybody has this provision in the contract where everybody's in the top 20%. They said, oh yeah, everybody has this. But if you think about that real quickly, not every stadium can be in the top 20%, right? What this means is that it's basically a race to the bottom in terms of how much money we're giving to the stadium, and thereby subsidizing this extremely profitable team if you look at how much that team has been worth over time. So I'm very much opposed to giving Milwaukee County money, or state money for that matter, to people who already have plenty of it in order to subsidize a team, unless of course they're giving us part of that team. I'm all in favor of locally owned teams. We don't have to look very far. The Packers are publicly owned. It would be great if the owners are willing to give us a little piece of the Brewers. Then I'd be much more amenable to that. But I know Senator Larson has had really good ideas in terms of having a percentage of sales at the stadium go into a fund that would pay for its repairs. I don't know if you can go into more detail on that, but I think that seems like a reasonable compromise to me.
Yeah, so we are, just to be clear, the budget originally had $290 million that was proposed by Governor Evers to go directly to the Brewers, which frankly was the first time I think I and many of you may have heard that the Brewers stadium was falling down and in need of these renovations. I think that was surprising because we were just 3 years after the sales tax expired, with the explanation that we're good. They were good for a while. So I don't know if it turned out that they realized there was a second page to the honey-do list at AmFam Field. But suddenly they were like, oh gosh, we need 290 million. And oh, isn't that strange that you have $7 billion just sitting right there on the table? It's just a weird quinky dink. But we were successfully able to move that conversation away from the budget, where there's, if you can tell by the number of questions, and I know you've noticed, we're covering a lot of ground of everything that the state covers. So gives us a chance for the Brewers to make their case directly to citizens about why they want this money, why they think that the taxpayers should cover this amount. And frankly, that's not just my opinion or the representatives' opinions. This is a bipartisan push to say, hey, wait a second, why do we want to give another huge subsidy to a sports team? We've done that for years for the Brewers. We did it for the Bucks just a few years ago, and you're starting to see this same play of saying, oh yeah, well, the team is going to move, the team may move. Well, the fact is, Brewers have we should have some confidence in ourselves as fans. We are on track to having 3 million people visit the stadium this year, which is always, we're consistently in the upper half of fans in terms of attendance. On top of that, they have a very good deal where they do not pay property taxes on that stadium. In fact, the state, there's a different entity that owns it, but they only end up paying $1.2 million annually in rent. And on top of that, a lot of the revenue that they produce, the state does not get a cut of to help reduce what they're doing over there. So that includes, advertising, that includes naming rights, that includes parking. So all of those things, I think, as we are able to slow this down, put those things on the table in terms of where fees can be collected, to be able to make sure that the Brewers attendees are those that are going to be paying for the stadium upgrades and anything else moving forward, and not putting it on general taxpayers. So we're going to be pushing for a better deal, and it'd be also nice. It'd be nice to see the Brewers invest some of their dollars into it, considering they're not investing it into the payroll like they should to be able to make a big push right now. I mean, we're number 2 in Central Division, which is like the worst division in baseball. Brewers, but I won't get on an off topic about what they should be doing in terms of pitching and getting left-handed pitchers. We'll save that for another time. Other topics, that is a thing that will be pulled, that is not part of the budget, will be coming thereafter. So to be continued, and I do hope to have a town hall specifically on that. The other things that are not specific to this bill that are coming out, there's a liquor law revamp. We got word that is not going to be moving through the state Senate. So for those that are following that and interested, that is not moving forward this next week. Which in legislative speak means it's not moving forward in the next 2 months. So for those who've been watching, that one is not happening. And I think those are the big things that got pulled out separately, unless I'm missing something else. No. Okay. Any other
Just to
questions?
follow up on the biodigester, I know anonymous attendee had a question about that. Amelia, who just stepped into the room, was able to find 2 parts that were in the governor's budget. One would provide $250,000 of grants to support planning for installation of regional biodigesters. And then there was a separate item which would have provided $50,000 annually for individuals who want to get certified to be biodigester operators. Those were both removed in joint finance.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, Representative Clancy. That's good. There is somebody jumped on anonymous about the registration fees. Again, this is something where I think you can and should encourage the governor to veto this portion out about the increase in the registration fees. I think agree as a hybrid driver, and frankly somebody who's, we should all be thinking about what we can do in our carbon footprint. We want to do all we can to incentivize the purchase and ownership of electric vehicles, and trying to reduce our carbon footprint as a state.
And I had more sympathy for like these sort of fee increases 10 years ago when electric vehicles were new and they were incredibly expensive. At this point, I mean, my wife and I bought a used electric vehicle a few years ago, and it was $6,500, and it didn't have a huge range. It got us around town and it was great. So as these become more affordable, if we have hundreds of dollars of fees, which is eventually a fine for owning an electric or a hybrid vehicle every year, hopefully we can get those reduced. Because as Senator Larson said, other states are going the other way. They're providing massive incentives to do this good thing for the environment. The idea that we're going the other way is really backwards. But yeah, this is something that we can push back on. Hopefully we can get a line item veto, and hopefully we can help folks to realize that this is not a partisan issue. It really shouldn't be.
All right, looks like there's no open questions at this point. Just looking at some of the overall notes. We covered transit, we covered ed. Corrections is due for an increase for correction officers. $4 add-on to pay base, so minimum pay of $33 per hour for the range 05 to 31. An increasing pay progression. Courts also see an increase for pay for prosecutors and public defenders, up to $36, similar to what Evers proposed. And then DOJ, one word. Okay, there was a cut to DOJ, unfortunately, in terms of what they were looking for the Office of School Safety. So that is something that's gotten quite a bit of attention. We will have an amendment to restore that tomorrow. Obviously, that will probably fail, but something to be able to draw attention to that and what that would mean for DOJ. Talked about the tax plan. We talked about.
And then, Senator, does it make sense to kind of go over what the procedure for amendments might look like talking about the difference between an omnibus amendment? Because I know we're going to see a lot of those on Thursday and other things. Did you want
to? Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have we are looking at some amendments for tomorrow. Omnibus are usually those that include a lot of different departments, and so you'll have one that's focused just on education and higher ed. We have one that's going to be focused on workforce development, which of course includes the child care accounts program, and other things to making sure that the Department of Safety and Professional Services is actually funded so people can get the licenses that they need, as well as ag, as well as the capital improvement budget. Folks who live in the northern part of my district or the 19th Assembly District may know that we have been at the state, or some of us have been pushing for try to get the nursing building or the health sciences building built in the northwest quadrant. Unfortunately, that has not moved forward. That is something we are going to try to continue to push because that has a lot to do with workforce development and the nursing shortage and the healthcare coverage. So those are omnibus ones. And then there's going to be ones that are called standalone amendments. Those are the simple amendments. So those we're going to have a few that are focused specifically and narrowly on things that I think that's easier for the public to understand. We're going to have one just for the child cares funding because I think it's that important. Another one on the Office of School Safety. Another one on the Medicaid expansion, which we didn't talk about a ton, but we were one of the last 11 states not to do the Medicaid expansion, Badger Care expansion within our state. We're actually the only state that pays more to cover less people. So not great math. So we're leaving money on the table for that. Another one on marijuana legalization. We're the only state right now. Every other state that we touch is either legalized or has a form of legal marijuana or is on track to have that happen in the next few months. And then, of course, on the repeal of the 1849 abortion ban, where Wisconsin is unfortunately trudging backwards. So those are some of the standalone amendments that we're going to be putting forward to try and make sure that there's a clarity in terms of where we're heading. And I think, it's forest through the trees, taking a step back. There's a $7 billion surplus on the table. If you got 33 strangers together who'd never met before, various ideologies, and said, hey, you got $7 billion to invest any way you like, I think you would be able to come up with a better plan than what's coming out of this, the state Senate tomorrow. Because so much of it is just going to the rich indefinitely. And at the same time, K-12 public education, the reimbursement, the funds that they're getting doesn't even keep pace with inflation. There is not just a small increase going to the university system, there's actually a cut at a time where we have a $7 billion surplus. Just think about that as one of those things that separates Wisconsin when you're, traveling around the country and people are like, oh yeah, Wisconsin, yeah, go Badgers. It's one of those where we are proud of our university system and they are cutting it at a time where we have a surplus. Childcare counts, of course, we've mentioned, but just the fact that there is $7 billion. And it just makes me, it just puts a lot of it in perspective, right? It just gives me that pause of like, you have the funds to do it. We have the funds to invest. And I think for so many budgets, they're saying, yeah, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. And not only are we not doing it now that the state has the money, but we're actually looking to permanently set up a tax structure in our state so we will never have the money again. And that is just, it's just jaw-dropping in terms of the scope, that we are not only missing the opportunities, we are preventing opportunities for the next generation if this budget moves forward unscathed.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you're totally right. It's interesting to see what happens when that excuse of we don't have the money drops away, because when now we do have the money. And I think that leads into Eric Tilich's next question, which is, can you weigh in on UW-Madison's budget and how significant cuts will affect our state moving forward? From a pure business standpoint, isn't this just a bad play by the GOP? Yes. Going after education at any level means that it's going to be harder, even if you don't value education and you think that there is no inherent worth in it. Going after that makes it harder to fill jobs and positions and to bring in industry if you want that sort of thing. And I'm under the impression that the Republicans do, because they talk about it all the time. I mean, on the floor of the assembly, I think 2 months ago we had the "nobody wants to work anymore" day, and everybody was lamenting the idea that we had all these jobs available and people are clearly just sitting at home unable to fill them. And then with the other hand, they try to defund public education. In this, the governor's budget had significant increases for UW-Madison. Joint Finance not only took some of them out, but did it in a way which is, they're making their motivations really clear. They're going to take away about $16 million annually, and that's 189 positions. And then they're going to require that those positions that are cut are positions that perform functions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this continued attack on DEI. So when we take away their excuse that we don't have money, they just lay bare why they're doing this, right? They very specifically do not like Milwaukee's Black and brown residents, and their budget reflects that. And it's an incredibly cynical ploy. This is something that I hope we're able to push back on. This is one of many reasons to vote against this budget, because this is explicitly racist, right? It doesn't get much worse than that. One other quick question was, the GOP has taken away local funding control over tech colleges. Is this a done deal? My understanding was that was withdrawn. That was an amendment on a sort of unrelated piece of legislation. And I think they backed off on that. I know that MATC and a lot of other tech colleges, yeah, it was an amendment to the personal property tax, which was already gotten rid of through the shared revenue deal. So yeah, my sense, and my colleagues can correct me, but I think that was an attack that was pushed back on successfully. I think the local funding is still.
And that's what I was going to add is, up until the very last minute, basically, we thought that language was going to stay in the bill. The very last minute, they pulled the whole bill away because of the pressure that they felt from our tech colleges. So sometimes it does really help to reach out to legislators. Don't know if it's going to come back again in another form, but that one was successful. So.
Well, good. Well, we are coming up just about on the last few minutes here. I don't think I had is there any final sign-offs you guys want to do, representatives? I did want to say thank you for the quick turnaround, and for the folks who jumped on, and hopefully we were able to answer your questions. Again, we'll hopefully we'll be able to leave the screen open just a little bit longer at the end if you didn't, but you can scan over under the Q&A section on the bottom, scan over to the answered section to some of those to be able to read through some of those answers, and there's some helpful links there. And then even under the dismissed section, you can see some of those questions that most of them we answered in real time. If you do have other questions, you can contact our offices. But just to reiterate the next steps, budget, the Senate will be in tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We just found out. Assembly will be in on Thursday. And then the governor has 6 days to be able to decide what his veto will be, if he's going to veto it. And then the line item vetoes that he's looking to put forward thereafter. So, and then the possibility of veto override happens, and that maintains all throughout the possibility of a potential veto override on many of these things. So, so continue to stay tuned. We appreciate you guys coming in on short notice. We're thinking about doing one in person, but I just think the realism of not being able to do that in a short timeline, and then also, you know, we're under air advisory warnings, makes it tough for some folks to be able to go out and participate. So that I think who started? Representative Sinicki started. Representative Clancy, do you want to do your sign off first?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming and answer, asking great questions and being engaged with this, because that is what we need. We need people who are passionate about the budget, which sounds dry until you dig into it. You realize that this is what our state will look like for the next 2 years. And thank you, Senator Larson, for being a champion on all of this, and for pulling this together too at the last minute. And of course to my colleague, Rep. Sinicki.
Okay, yeah, I too want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy afternoon. I know it's middle of the day, middle of the week. It's kind of tough sometimes for people to take part at this time, but you all did. So thank you so much. And thank you, Senator Larson, for setting this up so quickly for us. I really appreciate it. Gives us a chance to hear from constituents kind of at mass. So thank you so much. And we will probably see you, Senator, in the next couple of days, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, we'll be out there. And thank you to the representatives for jumping on at short notice, and thank you to my staff to be able to jump in and set this up on short notice. Yeah, including Justin Belinsky, who's listed not just once but twice, and also is doing this through his birthday, which was just on Friday. So big thank you to him.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah, and the other members of my staff. So thank you very much for doing that. And stay tuned about what's going on. I think the next time we'll see everybody is 4th of July. We'll be out at the parades. So if you want to tune in, both of the Senate and the Assembly will be on Wisconsin Eye. So you can tune in live to see what is going on. And we, of course, will have some budget update afterwards via the newsletter. So if you got the notice for this, you'll be able to get that. Excellent. Thank you, guys. I'm going to sign out, but again, we're going to leave it open just for a minute or two if folks want to be able to get their questions answered on the side to be able to see what those answers were. Thanks.